Hello and welcome back to my channel, Vision Basic. It's been a good bit since my last video, but I kind of needed some time to get some things done and to get better organized. Anyhow, let's jump right into what this video is going to be about. If you want to make a game in Vision Basic, you're probably going to need to design some sprite shapes first. Fortunately, Vision Basic comes with a completely free sprite editor called the Spreditor. And now it is available as a free download on my site, visionbasic.net. You'll find it on the Extras page. My website is ad-free and does cost me a decent bit each month. So please do consider leaving a donation if you find the Spreditor useful, but it's certainly not required. I did want to jump straight into doing another video on programming in Vision Basic, but my next programming example is going to need some sprite shapes, and I think a lot of folks using Vision Basic haven't necessarily checked out their copy of the Spreditor. So in this video, I want to highlight some of its strengths compared to other editors out there, especially if you just have a more vanilla sprite editor in your toolbox. For my next video, I'm going to need a spaceship that can rotate by smaller increments than the usual 90 degrees, and for that, the Spreditor is up to the challenge. So let's load this puppy, shall we? Alright, when you first load up the Spreditor, you're presented with a menu, which will appear shortly. You can choose the wait, I guess I might as well wait till I load it up. Here we go. Blah, 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 blah. I'm ready to talk, okay? Okay, let's start over. Alright, when you first load up the Spreditor, you're presented with a menu. You can choose the high-res editor, the multicolor editor, or you could choose a version of either that is better suited for doing shape rotations. Honestly speaking, the rotation editor for multicolor sprites is not very useful unless you intend to expand your sprites vertically, since you lose almost half of your height for each sprite shape, at least where the editor is concerned. From this menu, you can also watch the Spreditor demo or exit altogether. I'm going to start us out with the multicolor editor so that we can go over some of the features of the sprite editor. So let's press F1 to get there. Once the editor is up and running, you'll notice that we have a grid of 12 pixels wide and 21 pixels high. The pixels for multicolor shapes are twice as wide as they are for high-res shapes, so you'll have twice as many pixels to work with in the high-res editor. In the Spreditor, you can only have 128 sprite shapes in memory at a time. The numbering scheme for the shapes here may not line up with the values you'll have to poke to memory to access your shapes in a program you're making. Sprite shape numbers in the Spreditor range from 1 to 128, and the range of shape numbers available to you in the C64 when you are writing a program run from 0 to 255. In the Spreditor, you can change the shape number by pressing the space bar, and you can and you can shift the space bar to cycle backwards. So here we go, we're going to cycle forward, and right now we just have some very bland stuff going on here. So we'll go back to number 1. In multicolor mode, you get 3 plotting colors, and the 4th color is really just the background color. This allows for invisible pixels. In the Spreditor, the blue pixels you see here represent the background color. The 3 plotting colors are representative of the 3 colors you'll see on your sprites, but won't necessarily match the actual colors on the sprites themselves. So your usual plotting colors in the editor are cyan, purple, and green, and you can cycle through them with the plus and minus keys. So, anyhow, there you go. Awesome. Okay. But before we go further, let's clear the shape data and set the colors for our sprite shapes. To clear the sprite data, we simply type in the CLR command or clear command on the provided input line at the bottom. To do this, press return and type CLR on the input line. Enter, or return, sorry. CLR, and I press return. Okay, you can specify a range of shapes to erase, or you can leave off the parameters and the erasing will take place starting with the current shape being worked on, and all shapes after that will be erased as well. Right now, just typing it in cleared everything. You can also specify a byte value to fill the memory with, so we could fill shapes 15 to 30 with a value of 255 by typing this. If we cycle through our shapes, you can see that these shapes were indeed filled. So I'm going to go up to 15 here. See, filled all the way up to 30. Yeehaw! Okay. And then past that, nope, not filled. Okay, let's back up. Let's also set the colors for our sprites. We can set the shared colors with the call command, COL. So let's make those colors red and orange. And you're going to need to know your color numbers using this program. So call for color, 2 for red, and 8 for orange. All multicolor shapes will have these two colors in common, so make sure to take this into consideration when designing sprites for a game. For example, in Pac-Man, all the ghosts have white eyes with blue pupils. So if you were to recreate the ghosts of Pac-Man, you would use blue and white as your shared colors. You won't see anything happen yet after pressing return until we start drawing our shapes. So, see, nothing happened, at least visibly. Let's also set the attributes for all of our shapes. These attributes include the sprite's own color, its X and Y expansion, and whether it is multicolor or not. You'll want to do these things before drawing anything so that you can actually see the results in the 8 sprite shapes off to the right side of the screen. All 8 shapes are over here, even if you can't see them. So if we want our shapes to have a main color of yellow and we want them to be multicolor, we can type set 1 through 128 colon 7 comma, now the 7 is for yellow, and M for multicolor. You can also add X and Y if you want your shapes expanded horizontally and vertically, but we're not going to do that. And return. And there you go. We're pretty much ready to start designing shapes. Alright, now let's draw something so I can show you some more of the Spreditor's features. You can move about with the cursor keys, but you can only plot pixels with a joystick in port 2. And let's start drawing a shape. Here, go up. It's going to be something, nothing really exciting, so here we go. Okay. Oh wait, did I want to start with that color? No, I don't think I want to start with that. I thought we were okay, I think we're going to change it to, there you go. Try that. I'm not using a joystick, actually. I am using a keyboard because I'm using Vice. So, let's see. I'm going to change the color again. Okay. I'm using the number pad, and I've got, oops, I want to draw there. I've got the 5 is my fire button, and 8 is up, so I'm pressing 5 and 8 at the same time. Kind of awkward. Okay. 5 and 2. We're just going to draw some stripes here. Change the color again. Kind of had this shape pre-planned and did this before. I know it's boring. Not going to draw anything super crazy. And we'll just leave that little pixel down there for the heck of it. Why not? Okay. Doop. Oops. Okay, whatever. Boop, 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 boop. No. Wait a minute. I don't want that. Bet you're loving the commentary here. Let's go back. Let's get rid of that one. I don't want that one. Okay. Trying to remember what I wanted to do. You'll see why in a minute, too. Okay. Okay. Let's create a zipper, folks. Or some kind of windy thing. Oops, no, not that one. Change color again. A lot more fun with the joystick. Okay. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. I think that's what I was going to do. Let me check something real quick here. Have some notes off to the side. Okay. Close. A little different. It's okay. Alright. Anyhow. Kind of sort of what I wanted to do. Oh, wait. I'm missing a pixel. I'm a perfectionist, sort of. Okay, there we go. Alright. Now, as you can see, the grid colors don't match the sprite colors we have chosen. All these colors here don't match these. But it's not really necessary. But if you're nitpicky, we can change the grid colors with the grid command. So here we go. GRID. We're going to choose a background color 6. Shared color number 1, which is red. And we're going to keep the background color 6, which is blue. This main sprite color 7. Shared color number 2. And we'll leave the cursor at wait and press enter. And voila, now things are starting to match. As you can see here, it's like twins, except one's bigger than the other. Big daddy twin and little tiny guy. Okay. Now I also I'm going to also go over some of the keys to show you what they can do. There's pretty much no key left on the keyboard that doesn't do anything. I mean, there probably is a couple, but there are pretty much every key gets used. So we're going to start with up, down, left, and right, which will move the shape up, down, left, and right by pressing 1. 1 does up, 2 does down, 3 does left, and 4 does right. And as you can see, this is a non-destructive movement. Pixels are not pushed off the edges. And 5 will do a vertical flip. I don't know if it'll be noticeable, but here we go, 5. You don't see much except for this extra pixel here, which actually kind of helps us to see that it did flip. But anyways, you want to flip a shape upside down or copy a shape and flip it so that you can have multiple, angles of a shape. Flipping vertically is helpful. We also have press 6 and you have horizontal flipping. Takes a little longer, but there we go. Horizontal flipping. And press 7 and it'll do a clockwise rotation of 90 degrees. And as you see, this doesn't work well in multicolor mode, but here we go. See, actually we rotated the top 12 by 12 area by 90 degrees, but because the pixels are twice as wide, it's kind of funky looking. Anyways, we're going to get things back to the way they were. Actually, I need to get that little pixel back down on the bottom. Oh wait, nope. This little guy, come on, back at the bottom. There you go. Okay. Anyhow, the rotate key 7 works better in high-res mode. The next key to describe is the 8 key. When you press 8, it stores the current shape into the provided buffer. We'll press 8 and store our shape in that buffer. You won't see anything happen by doing that, but the buffer now contains our shape. Now you can press the home key to home the cursor, and you shift it, press clear, or essentially the same thing as pressing clear, and it will clear the current shape. And then the 9 key comes in handy. You're like, dang, I didn't want to do that, so I did a lot of work there, you know. Press the 9 key, and it restores the shape held in the buffer. And if you need to fill areas of your sprite shape quickly, just press the arrow key in the upper left corner of the C64 keyboard. And I'm going to go to a spot here. And don't want to do it, well, oh, wait a minute, before we do that, I'm going to make it a little more interesting here. So we're going to erase a section here. I want to show you how the fill can actually wind its way around things. Here we go. And wait, we need a different color. Let's go with yellow. Okay, here we go, folks. Ready or not? And you can see that it's actually doing all the work here and catching up over here. And there you go. And you can undo a fill by pressing 9, since the shape gets stored to the buffer before it starts to fill. And you only have one level of undo, so don't get too excited. Okay, let's advance to the next shape for some more fun. Yay! You can plot coordinates on the grid by pressing any letter of the alphabet. So we're going to just do like A. We're going to put A over there. Still there if you can't see it, but highlight it. A little difficult to see on the blue grid. But you got A over there, and we're going to put B down here. And then we're going to put C off here to the side. Oops, that's not C. Get rid of it by pressing the same key. Press C. And I mean, it could be any letters. It doesn't have to be A, B, C in order. But you'll see why I'm doing this here. And we can connect them with straight lines by typing the line command. So go down here, L-I-N-E, line. Connect A with, oops, with B, with C, and then back to A. And there you go. Voila. Simple straight lines. Try doing that with a joystick. Okay. You could also use the insert and delete key to insert a line or delete a line from the current shape. Simply choose to insert or delete by pressing the key, and then, I'm not going to do it yet, but and then afterwards, as a separate key press X for horizontal movement or Y for vertical movement. When you insert a line, all bits are pushed either down or to the right from where the cursor is. The new line that is opened up is actually not cleared, so this allows you to duplicate a row or column of bits in the process. When you delete a line, the line actually gets deleted and all bits down or to the right are pulled towards the cursor. And the line of bits on the edge of the sprite are cleared to the background color. So let's just go to the middle here. And we're going to choose to insert from this location, so press insert. And you'll notice that the cursor disappeared, and we're going to press X for horizontal inserting. And there you go. Now we did push some pixels off the edge, so those will vanish if we choose to delete. Well, I mean, they're vanished anyways, but you'll see when we press delete and then we press X again that those pixels are permanently gone. Now, I did want to, okay, let's try, let's do the Y. Let's insert on the Y axis. Insert Y, because, okay, insert Y, and there you go. As you can see, this line here got duplicated twice. Okay. But let's just leave it. And heck, why not? Let's go ahead and fill this shape with a color. Orange. Okay, I want to show you that all eight sprites are actually on the screen right now. So let's copy this shape into the buffer by pressing 8 and paste it into the next 6 shapes. So press the space bar and press 9, press the space bar again, 9, again, 9, and again, 9, and again, 9, one more time, 9. Almost looks like we have one of those little candies, candy corn, almost. Okay, so this helps us to segue into another feature of the Spreditor. If you press any of the function keys, you can control any of the 8 sprites on screen. See? You can move them close to each other so that you can work on game players consisting of 2 or more sprites. So if we wanted to start, let's just take this guy up here. What if we were, hold on. Boop. Okay, so if we were to take these 2 guys here, we can like make one tall sprite shape, you know, by combining the 2. We can work on one of them and then work on the other below it. You can also overlap them completely to add more colors to the player sprite. So if we wanted to overlap them, we can do so. And we can get more colors that way by opening up areas in the upper sprite and using the color from the sprite below. So watch. You can also change the main color for each sprite, the X and Y expansion, and the multicolor mode as well. And I have explained this in a prior video or 2 that these attributes will be saved along with the sprite data when you save them to disk. This allows these attributes to be called back up when you load your shapes back into the Spreditor. The grid colors don't get saved, so they'll revert back to their default colors. Let's change some of these attributes, shall we? So we can do X and Y expansion. Change it back. Yeah. Okay. And then change the main sprite color, which I guess in this case is the outside. But see, this is this shows how you can overlap your sprites and get some extra colors here. As you can see in this instance, we have 4 colors now instead of 3. And you can layer sprites in this fashion on top of each other multiple times if you want to get more colors. So we'll move this guy over here. I was going to go for the one below, but let's just use this one. Okay. And then change its colors. And there you go. I mean, I know this is not like the best example, but it shows you that you can overlap sprites and get more colors. Of course, you'll be sacrificing sprites, but hey, sometimes you just got to do it. Now, when you load the shapes into your own programs, these saved colors and other attributes won't magically reinstate themselves, but there is a routine in the Spreditor manual that can reinstate them and help to save a handful of pokes. You might be wondering where these attributes get stored. Well, there is an unused byte between each sprite shape in memory, and so that is where I chose to store the sprite's color, X and Y expansion bits, and multicolor status bit. The final unused bit from this byte is used as a flag to indicate the end of the sprite data. This flag is used to help obtain the shared colors for your collection of sprite shapes. If the flag is set, then the two colors can be found in the 2 bytes that follow. There are a few more commands that you can type into the command input line, but the manual explains them well enough, and we need to move onward in this video. I will explain the save and load commands real quick here, though. To save a set of shapes, this is a tongue twister. To save a set of shapes, you simply type save and specify the range of shapes you wish to save, followed by a file name containing no spaces. And finally comes a loading address where you want your sprites to load in at. And if it sounds like I've eaten a frog, I promise you I haven't. But my voice is getting kind of raspy. So if you want to save shapes 1 to 8 to disk, I could type the following. Save 1 to 8. My shapes. And 32768 would be a potential loading address. There are other formats for the parameters here, and they are explained in the manual. You can leave off the loading address if you want, but your file will be tagged with the DAT file name extension, and you won't be able to load your shapes into memory with the usual basic load command. Instead, you'll have to load them in byte by byte. This is because the 2 bytes comprising the loading address do not get sent out during the save. I'm not sure why I created this file format, but I created the spreader all the way back in the late 90s. I guess I just considered it a type of sequential file format. Anyhow, I recommend specifying a loading address, even if you later plan to load your file in at a different location. When the loading address is specified, your file name will be tagged with the MOB file extension, MOB. As for loading, you can type load and you can follow it with a shape number to load in at, followed by a comma and then a file name. Or you can just specify a file name and then the shapes will load in starting at the current shape being edited. Assuming that you don't save files with the DAT extension, you'll need to put an asterisk at the end of the file name, and this will pretty much load in any sprite files that supply a loading address regardless of extension. So the simple way to load shapes is to navigate to the shape you wish to start loading in at, and then typing load my shapes, and then put the asterisk. And again, we're not going to load anything, but I'm just doing an example here. Okay, let's get on to the real reason for this video. I want to make a game, and I need some shapes. I'll need to save the game part for my next video, though. Anyhow, I want to design a spaceship that rotates more thoroughly than the usual 90-degree angles. For this task, we're going to need to draw out our shape on a special graph for plotting polar coordinates on. Fortunately, the Spreditor manual has some of these graphs in the back that can be printed out. What are polar coordinates, you might ask? Well, most of us are used to XY coordinates, but polar coordinates consist of an angle and a radius in respect to a center point on the graph. I created a ship in my previous video, and the one I plan to design here is going to look a tad similar. Take a look at this graph here. I've plotted points on the graph and connected them with lines to help outline my spaceship, or fighter if you will, right here. You can see that we have degrees running on the outside of the graph, and the center of the graph represents a radius of 0, and each concentric circle radiating outward represents a radius measurement from that center. So the outermost radius here is 11. And this would be 0. And you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. You'll want to limit your radius to 10 though when drawing your shapes on these graphs. Otherwise, the points may extend past the top and bottom of your sprite shapes. If you look up polar coordinates on the internet, you'll notice that my graph here is upside down where the angle measurements are concerned. Notice here. This is because on the C64, we're used to our y-axis being flipped, where positive values go down instead of up. So when I designed this program, the conversion of polar coordinates to Cartesian coordinates, aka rectangular coordinates, the x and y ones, tends to flip things anyhow. So on a regular, kind of like your protractor, the angles would actually normally would go this direction, 0, 10, 20, and so forth. But anyways, because again, we're talking about, we're doing this on a computer, everything is kind of flipped, so down we go. Now that we have our sprite design graphed out, we're going to have the Spreditor convert our polar coordinates into x and y coordinates by writing some little programs. In order to give the Spreditor some flexibility with respect to movements within the sprite shapes, I created a sort of language to assist with the movements. The manual explains the commands of this language, but we're only going to focus on those pertaining to shape rotation. There are plenty of examples in the manual to help explain the programming of sprite shapes. But first we need to exit the multicolor editor and enter the high-res editor. We do this by pressing the shift and run stop keys at the same exact time. Waiting. Okay. And then we select F5 from the menu. Once loaded, you'll notice that we have more pixels to work with, though the sprite size itself stays the same. And we only have a single plotting color to work with, in addition to the background color. The reason I'm choosing high-res sprites for my game is because rotating multicolor sprites is a bit tricky and the results are not all that great. And it's principally because of the lower resolution. The first thing we need to do is plot a central point for rotation. So we'll go down to 10 pixels and go right 10 pixels. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now notice this is actually a little easier to do with the keyboard because if you use the joystick, it might advance more than 1 pixel at a time. Okay. You know what? We're going to leave. I was originally going to clear these shapes out, but we're going to leave them here for a moment. As you can see, these have retained their multicolor status, but the saved colors were not saved because we did not save them to a file. So now if I'd saved them and loaded them back in, the colors would have been reinstated perfectly. Let's also set the attributes for the shapes we want to create. So we use the set command. We're going to set 1 through 36. And we're going to use the color 12, which is a kind of gray color, and press return. So now we can begin to write some programs by typing prog program in the input line. So prog, or you can just type P instead. Here you will see that we can type in 4 programs consisting of up to 4 lines each. We can tell the Spreditor to run each one separately, or we can run them together, but in sequence. Now, instead of typing everything in while you watch, because I know that's just super exciting, I'm just going to copy and paste the code that will accomplish the task of creating our rotating spaceship. It's almost effortless. Now, this might all look like gibberish, so I'll explain what each part does, but I won't linger too much on anything. This first command is a letter command. The letter commands start with a letter, hello. In this instance, we are telling the Spreditor that we want to move the B coordinate, which hasn't been plotted on the grid yet, to a specific distance away from the A coordinate, which we did plot on the graph. In this case, it's 4 pixels. But we're only focused on the X coordinate, and we're going to be using the cosine function, C. The cosine and sine functions allow us to convert our polar coordinates into regular X and Y coordinates. So here is how to read the command. bxac4. We want the b coordinates x position to equal the cosine of the current angle, and I'll explain that in a minute, times 4, and added to the a coordinates x position. The positioning of all these letters here, bxac, matters. We're focused on the b and a coordinates, but only the x position. We have a distance of 4, and we want to use the cosine function. Typically, the cosine is used for horizontal movement, and sine is used for vertical movement. So again, b equals the x of a plus the cosine of the current angle times 4. Now, for those who didn't do well in trig class, if you always plot the letter A centered on the grid, you can simplify matters by simply typing xac and yas, yes, after your letter coordinates, as you see here. And then type a distance, 4, 10, 9, 7. So here we got xac, 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 yes, 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 yes. So the first two commands here take care of our b coordinate. This b coordinate gets created when the program runs, and any existing letter b on the drawing grid will be restored to its original position when the program is done running. If you want to try these commands out on a multicolor shape, you'll want to divide all of the radius values for creating x coordinates in half. So anywhere you see an x coordinate, or that you have one, you will need to divide these numbers in half, and decimal points are allowed. So this would become 2, this would become 5, this would become 4.5 and 3.5. And this only applies to when you're trying to do rotations on a multicolor in the multicolor editor. Okay, so let's discuss what the current angle is all about. See, when you run programs in the Spreditor, you're asked for a starting shape and an ending shape, and a starting angle and an ending angle. For full rotations, you'll typically start out with an angle of 0 and end up with, with an angle of 0 and end with an angle of 360. So the first shape is paired up with an angle of 0, and no rotation will occur, the first shape that you create. Depending on the number of shapes you are trying to create, the angle will be advanced for each shape evenly until the final shape, which will be paired up with the angle of 360. Actually, 360 is never reached because you would end up with two identical shapes at both ends. So the final shape gets the angle 360 minus whatever increment is being used. Well, the next command you'll see here is the angle command right here, indicated by a slash followed by an angle. Now this command works with the current angle in that it will actually change it to something else. The reason you want to change the angle, even though the Spreditor handles the angle for you, is that you need to move the current angle around so that you can place different letter coordinates on the grid. At the end of the program, you'll want to restore the angle back to where it started out as in its current condition. So with the slash 30 here, we're adding 30 to the current angle. This is the current, we're starting with 0 as the current, and then we're going to add 30. This is done so that we can place letter coordinate C on the grid next. So let's try to figure this out on the grid. Slash 30, and we're going to plot 10 points out. So it's talking about this little coordinate right here. Okay, so let's look at both the spaceship on the graph and also look at our program to see what's going on. We start out at an angle of 0 and plot B 4 pixels out from the center. Then we're going to adjust the angle by 30 and plot C 10 pixels out from the center. And again, this is C. Then we adjust the angle by 10 over here and plot angle D 10 pixels out from the center. And here's D. Then we add 20 and plot coordinate E right here. Then we add 10 and plot coordinate F. Then we're going to add 10 again and plot coordinate G. And next we add 20 to the angle and plot coordinate H. And finally we subtract all that we added to bring the angle back to where it started from. So 30, 10, 20, 10, 10, 20, all added together should equal 100. Actually, be negative 100 to get it back to where it started from. So looking at the program and comparing it to what's going on down here in the graph, let's see. I believe this is B, C, D, E, F, and I think this will be G. And then H. Okay, so our program above actually is going to plot these draw these lines. And that brings us to the next part. And next comes the part where we connect all of our coordinates with lines. So here, right here, we are connecting B, C, D, E, F, G, and H with lines. The command is called the period command and can also be used to draw just single dots. Dots can be drawn simply by omitting the dashes between the letters. Each of our programs here draws a different part of our ship. So we're going to just run the first program and see what it does. So we press Shift Return to exit from this mode, press Return, and then type Run, and press Return again. Here we are asked for our source shape. We can simply make changes to the shape being drawn to and select Same, as you see here, or we can take a previous shape and then we can add to it for a sort of accumulative effect. We can also choose to pull from the buffer right here and copy it to the current shape if there's anything in the buffer, or we can simply clear the shape in question, and this will happen for all the shapes that we choose to program content for. For our first program run, we are going to select Clear, which is incidentally already there. Okay, next we need to select a low and high limit for the shapes we wish to apply our program to. In this case, we are going to generate 36 shapes to represent 360 degrees of rotation. Our shape will rotate 10 degrees at a time. It is important to note that one drawback to creating rotating sprite shapes is that they can occupy a lot of memory. At most, you can have about 15K worth of shapes, and it's very easy to fill up all of that memory with sprite shape data when you have shapes that fluidly animate. Anyhow, our low limit will be 1. Press Enter or Return. And our high limit will be 36. So we're going to change this to 36. I believe it's with the plus and minus keys. Okay. Again, I'm using a PC keyboard, so pretty sure it's white. Okay. Okay. Within that range of shapes, we get to choose a starting point. So I'm going to choose 1. Let's press Return. Now we must choose a direction, and since we want to advance to the next sprite, we will choose, of course, 1. If we were working backwards from our upper limit of 36, then we would choose -1, which I can't show you now, but you can choose -1. And if we are applying multiple runs of our program to a single shape, then we would choose 0. Next, we must choose how many cycles to run each program. Generally, if you are going to generate 36 shapes like we are, you would select 36 program cycles. So here we go. There are times where you might only want to run a program to affect only a portion of the shapes you are working on, so you would choose a smaller number. It is at this point you can back out of the running of your programs easily if you just simply select 0 cycles for all 4 programs, and it basically will be returned back to the sprite editor. Anyhow, we are going to give our first program 36 cycles as shown here, and then we're going to skip the other 3 programs for now. So return, 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 and return. Next, we are asked for a starting and ending angle. Since we are doing a full rotation, we are going to choose 0 and 360. So enter here, and we're going to cycle to 360 here. You can choose any 2 angles within 720 degrees of rotation, and that accounts for 2 full rotations. So you can go up even higher, but we don't want that. Okay. The Spreditor will automatically cycle backwards if your starting angle is greater than your ending angle. In our case, the Spreditor will know to advance 10 degrees each time. Finally, after pressing return, we are asked for a plotting color to start with. We are going to choose 1 so that we can actually see what is being drawn. Otherwise, you can use 0, which is the background color. After we make this choice, our first program will begin to run. So let's get ready and press return. Okay, folks, technical difficulty. I ran the program and noticed that I forgot to plot the apparently forgot to plot the A coordinate. I went down 10, went across 10, and did not notice that I forgot to plot it. So, anyhow, see a bunch of gibberish over here. We're going to run our program again and see what happens. Hopefully this time it'll work. Okay. Okay, now things look like they're working okay. As our program is being executed, each line of the program gets displayed at the bottom as it's being executed. Right here. Since the Spreditor is compiled basic, it's not going to run terribly fast, as I used Blitz for this way back in the 90s. But since I'm using the Vice emulator, I can actually speed things up if I want to. So we're going to go into warp mode again, as I love to do. Okay, and now our first program has worked its magic. If you'd like to see what we have so far being animated, all we need to do is press the 0 key. There you go. We aren't done yet, so this looks kind of odd. Stick with me here, though. Looks like a wire hanger or something. Spinning. Okay. Let's stop it. And let's run our next program. Press return. We're going to type run again, but this time we're going to choose same for our source shape, since we don't want to destroy our progress so far. The Spreditor remembers all of our previous entries, so we're going to skip a few things here. Program 1 gets brought down to 0 cycles. Oops, that's not down. Okay, press enter. And then we give program 2 36 cycles. And here we go. Get ready for it. And now it's going to draw a little bit more of the shape. And again, this was program 2, which I did not go over. And we're going to go do some warp magic here. Execution complete. And let's animate. And up here, you can see it spinning. Alright, next we're just going to run our next 2 programs in succession. Let's type run again and skip past some entries here. Run. And we're going to give program 2 0 cycles. And then we're going to give both 3 and 4 36 cycles. Since we are going to run two programs in succession, we are going to need to rotate our ship twice so that each program gets 360 degrees. So we'll start out with 0, and our ending angle will be adjusted to 720. And let's run the programs. And program 3 will be run first. And we're just going to go through it. And then after program 3 is done, program 4 should kick in. And there it goes. All right. And now we can animate. We're not finished yet, but it's starting to take shape. I'm going to need to erase my 4 programs before going forward, so we can do this with the new command. New. And type P to enter program mode. And again, I'm going to paste in the necessary code. And my ship disappeared, so bear with me. Bring that back. And Alt Insert. We have a couple new commands here to discuss. On the first line we have a number 1. The number command, as it is, tells the Spreditor to choose color number 1. And even though we're going to choose color 1 when we run, there's a reason for specifying the color here. Then we have the at command, which allows us to draw intricate shapes pixel by pixel, but for our purposes we are only using the fill instruction, and so this reads at A, perform a fill. We're going to get the Spreditor to fill our shape with color number 1, and that's why we specified it here. Next, we use number 0 here to switch to color number 0. And then next, we are going to draw the cockpit, all here, using the background color. And on the final line of program 1, we are going to fill the cockpit at coordinate A again, as well, with color 0, since we specified it here. So essentially, when the program runs, it's going to alternate between color 1 and color 0. Go back and forth. We're going to do a fill with color 1, then we're going to draw some stuff, and then do fill with color 0 here. And program 2 draws in the very back end of our spaceship, right here, since that's missing. Okay, so let's run these 2 programs and see what happens. We need to exit. Okay, run. Go with same, low limit 1, 36, starting shape 1, direction, program cycles, going to do 36 for the first, and 36 for the second, and bring these back down to 0, 3 and 4. And here we go. We're definitely going to need to enter warp mode here, or this video will be very long. So here we go. Well, let's watch it draw that. Okay. As you can see, it drew a cockpit, but we're going to have to get this warp mode going. We're going to be here a while. Imagine doing all this by hand, like in the old days. All right. Okay, let's animate this thing and see what we've got. Whoa. There you go. Had it on warp mode. To finish this off, we're going to have to go in and fill some little spaces here and there and fix some minor stuff like this engine here at the bottom. So for example, change the color. Go down, get rid of this pixel, go over, and plot another pixel. And there you go, kind of evens it out. And I'll just demonstrate filling. Do a fill, and fill. And there you go. Now we don't have any easy tools to smooth out the edges like today's computers with let me see if I like to say aliasing, but I know it's not that. It's aliasing, anti-aliasing, but I still prefer anti-aliasing. I'm sorry. But we do have some fairly accurate results regardless, as you saw when this thing was spinning. And heck, let's go in and rotate it by hand. You can see. And again, you would need to go in and fill in all these little gaps here. But there's a fair amount of accuracy here. But all 36 shapes were computed, if that's a word. Maybe I'm just making it up. I don't know. Now, I'm not happy having a monochrome ship here, so I'm planning to sacrifice a sprite in my game. We could put another high-res sprite behind this ship for each extra color that we want, and I've mentioned this earlier, and we could use a darker gray to smooth out the edges if we want. And the latter thing I just mentioned, that would take a lot of work for 36 shapes, so I'm not going to bother with that. But I do want to give the engine thrust a color and the cockpit window a color as well. Instead of sacrificing two high-res sprites for this job, though, there is a trick where we can use one multicolor sprite instead and get the benefit of it looking as though high-res sprites are being used. As long as you create your initial shapes, kind of like a coloring book, as you see here, with lines to outline the areas you want to fill, you can overlap those lines with multicolor pixels underneath, of course, and nobody would know that you were drawing outside the lines. I'm using a coloring book metaphor here. You just have to make sure that the multicolor sprite you are sacrificing appears behind the high-res shape. Now, I've already prepared this set of spaceship sprites ahead of this video, so I'm just going to load the file and show you what I mean. And the screen goes blank while the sprites are being loaded. Okay, I kind of warped it a little bit there. Okay, and if we move one of our shapes over, just press F2. Let's. Okay, gotta line it up. And then now we're going to advance to shape 37. Oops. And there you have it. All you need to do is go back into the multicolor editor and move the sprite over like this and start drawing in your colors. You'll have to carefully advance each shape, the foreground one and the background one, so that you can create 36 multicolor shapes to pair up with each of the high-res ones. So for example, you would, if you drew these two and you're like done with them, you advance, you go to shape 1, advance that, and then go to the one underneath and advance that. But also in the editor, you would have to advance to 37. There you go. And as you can see here, we're in the high-res editor, so it's not going to look right. That's why I said you had to go back to the multicolor editor. But anyways, you got a ball here that kind of represents the cockpit window. What I did was I basically took a kind of a ball shape and I copied it to each one, and occasionally I would have to maybe add a pixel or take away a pixel in case any pixels of the colors bled over into the outside here. And then I went in and just drew in the yellow area for each one as it rotates around. So you can just watch it rotate. Anyhow, let's go back. I'm sorry, I'm OCD. I just like to be back at the start of it. Okay, oops. And let's take a different shape and I'll show you what it looks like. Let me show you what the little blob looks like. Now this would be behind the ship, but it's effectively going to color in the glass and the oops, that's my laser. I'll explain that in a minute. I'm going to effectively color in the glass and the engine as the ship rotates. And I'm also going to show you the laser that I kind of accidentally showed you already, but in all we are going to have 108 shapes. And I also need to whip up some kind of explosion too, so that will add to the total too. And I don't have the explosion shapes ready for this video, and I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do with that yet, so we'll see. Hopefully it'll look cool, but who knows. Let's show you the rest of the shapes, which would be the lasers here. Goes up to 108, and past that nothing. Okay, so anyhow, there you go. Now with the lasers, I had to create a program for that too, and since the lasers didn't appear completely identical to each other, I had to go in and tweak some pixels here and there, so no big deal. And let's move the move the lasers up to the ship. And there you go. Awesome. But I'm going to try to explain previously what I just said. I'm going to go back into the editor and get to our laser shapes, and I'm going to show you what I mean by they weren't perfectly identical. So for example here, you know, I may have had, like, say, had a pixel down here, and then something like that. You know, the everything is very precise in this editor, but despite being precise, you know, it still has to decide where to start and end things, and all these calculations are going on. So yeah, it wasn't perfect, but I'm like, well, I want each laser to at least look identical, so you know, I just had to go in and fix a few. So anyhow, that's what I did. Wait, voila. So there you go. Like I said, no big deal. So anyhow, like I said, I'm going to try to use these shapes for my next video, and hopefully that won't take as long. I don't think that, I mean, gosh, it's been weeks since my last video, but I've actually started working on the content, or at least some of the programming for the next video, so hopefully that'll keep me from running too behind. And in this next video, we're going to go back to the world of Vision Basic. If you stumbled upon my video and don't know what Vision Basic is, just visit my website at visionbasic.net or watch one of my other videos here on my channel. I did originally try making this rotating ship in multicolor mode, and the results were kind of meh. Let me load up a program here to show you a comparison between what you see here and the multicolor one I worked on before this. Rot ships. No, we're not. Nothing is rotting. We're rotating. All right. The design isn't exactly the same, but it's close. So hopefully you can see the benefits of going high res and sacrificing a multicolor sprite to fill in for extra color. Hopefully I can make a pretty sweet game out of this. I added the lasers here just for fun. And if you're looking at a tiny phone screen, I can blow the image up for you with a key press. There you go. Big fat sprites. But I just want to point out here that you can see that this I just don't find this acceptable. I mean, you can do rotations in multicolor, but because of the pixels being double wide, it does warp them quite a bit, so it just doesn't look as nice. And this pretty much looks like a multicolor sprite, even though it's high res. So it's gonna be for the next video. And so this wraps things up for this video. The Spreditor is free to download on my website, so make sure to visit visionbasic.net. You'll find it on the extras page. Again, if you find the Spreditor useful, consider leaving a donation on that page to help cover the costs of having an ad-free website. Some people probably think I'm swimming in money for my videos and website, and to date, anyhow, I've actually spent more than I've made so far, so take that as you will. One of my buyers of Vision Basic has posted a few videos of my product, so I'd like to share his channel with you. I'll put a link to his channel in the description. His channel is called Gray Defender, and he covers a wide variety of interesting retro stuff, and I think he does an excellent job in his presentation, so please check his channel out. And I thank you all for watching my video. Please like and share my video, and also subscribe for more similar content. And make sure to visit visionbasic.net.